I will now call to order this regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission this Monday, July 13th, 2020. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which stands
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, has the roll been taken?
It has. All are present tonight.
All right. Proclamations and presentations. I believe Manager Ridley had a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. I just thought it might be appropriate, Commissioners, if you don't mind, if I said a couple words about Mindy Norton, who was our Morning Sun reporter. And then after that, if you would be so inclined, I think it would be appropriate for us to have a moment of silence in her memory. As many of you know, Mindy passed away on June 29th, and she was the city beat reporter for a number of years. And I believe I can speak for all of us to say that we very much enjoyed working with Mindy as our reporter. Mindy always worked very hard to make sure she presented a factual story and provided perspectives from all sides of an issue. She wanted to make sure her readers understood the complexity of the issues, so she would make sure she fully researched and understood all of the issues before she would write any of her stories. Mindy was always an observant person and would sometimes share what I thought were the most insightful observations about people and about issues. And I have to say, I learned a lot from her over the years based on the research that she did and her observations of people. I believe the city and its residents were well served by Mindy's unbiased, factual, research-based, and multifaceted and fair reporting. Even though she wasn't a public employee, she truly was a public servant in my mind. And my last conversation I had with Mindy was on the phone, and she told me at that time that she had been watching our meetings on the YouTube channel, even though she wasn't writing stories at that time. And she told me that she really recognized during that time that she truly was a local government geek. And what touched me the most was she said how much she enjoyed watching the meetings on YouTube without having to worry about taking notes and worrying what story she was going to write about the meeting, and how much she had enjoyed that opportunity to be able to do that without that extra pressure. Mindy was truly a class act, and I think we're all going to be missing her. And so, as I indicated, if the commission's willing, I think it would be appropriate for us to have a moment of silence in her memory, please.
Thank you, Nancy. I think those were very, very great words for Mindy, and truly are going to miss her. Next on our agenda is additions or deletions to the agenda. And do we have any additions or deletions? Vice Mayor Perschbacher?
I emailed everyone earlier today, and I would like to move to add an item to the agenda called Consider a Resolution Supporting Executive Order 2020-147 regarding face coverings.
Commissioner Ronan?
I'd second that motion if it needs to be second. I'm not quite sure the process.
Just to be clear, this is a motion to add an item to the agenda, and so it will need 5 votes.
Ah.
And I will open up the floor for discussion on adding this item to the agenda. Commissioner Alsager?
I fully support the addition as I've read it. I think it's very well stated. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands, I will, Pete, is your hand up?
Yes, sir. My raise a hand function wasn't working. I really don't think this is needed, number one. Number two, just about, I don't know, it might have been a half an hour ago, I got a red alert from the state of Michigan saying it's mandatory that you must wear your face mask. I think that's ridiculous. The red alert system is not used for sending out alert to wear a face mask. That's ridiculous.
All right, seeing no other discussion, I'll just remind the commission that we need 5 votes to put this on the agenda. And Jeremy, or would you do a roll call vote for us?
Mayor, if I could just clarify real quickly to make sure the commission knows, all you're doing at this point is voting to put it on the agenda. It would be added as item number 15, and you would have discussion and debate on the actual resolution at the end of it, and then vote on the resolution at that time. So all you're voting on is adding it to the agenda right now, just to clarify.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolis,
No,
Vice Mayor Perschbacher. I think you were, that didn't come through. Sorry.
Yes.
And Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Okay. All right, so that item will be added to item as number 15. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda tonight? All right. Seeing no other hands, I will open up the first public input on agenda items, and this is the time for the public to discuss items that are on the agenda tonight. Do have a member of the public in our meeting. And if you want to be recognized, I think you're unmuted, so did you have comment for the commission?
I'm speaking to the tree we discussed last year that leans out over Kinney Street in my front yard. It would be, now that Dave Breedlove is no longer an arborist, a licensed arborist here, it would be tremendously expensive for us to bring someone in every year to have a look at it. He doesn't know of anyone local. I think that he suggested that having the tree looked at once every 5 years or after a particularly violent weather episode would probably be sufficient. And I'm hoping that you all will agree with that.
Thank you very much. Manager Ridley, were there any emailed comments to the commission on agenda items?
No, there were not, Mayor.
All right, then I will now close the first public input on agenda items, and we will move to the receipt of petitions and communications. Manager Ridley.
The only items under this section of your agenda tonight are the report on pending items, which includes a monthly report on citizen complaints, the May minutes of the Parks and Recreation Commission, a resignation from Sarah Christensen from the Tax Increment Finance Authority Board. Her term was set to expire on December 31st, 2023. And she is resigning at this point, so that has been referred to the Appointments Committee to bring a replacement recommendation to you at a future meeting. And then there was one correspondence that was received before the packet was sent out, and that was from Joellen DeLucia of 634 South University. And she sent you a communication regarding the encouragement of mask wearing and social distancing in Mount Pleasant. And that is the end of the petitions and communications.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Next on our agenda is the consent calendar, and items with the asterisk next to them are the items on the consent calendar. Are there any items that need to be removed? Seeing no hands up, Manager Ridley, would you like to start us off with the consent calendar?
Yes, we are recommending the following items, Commissioners. The first is approval of the minutes of your regular meeting of June 22nd. And then we have two bids for your consideration this evening. The first is for a project that involves the removal and replacement of valves and existing piping at the 500,000 gallon elevated water tank, which is on Kinney, just north of Pickard. We're recommending award of the low qualified bidder for that project, which is Isabella Corporation, for $54,140. The second bid is recommended as a sole source bid. And during a safety review that was done of Pickard in 2017, it was recommended that a left turn phase signal be considered at Main and Pickard if the potential road diet was not implemented. As you are well aware, we ended up not recommending or implementing that road diet and went forward with just milling and overlaying the street. So we are now therefore recommending a sole source contract with J Rank Electric to add the recommended left turn phase at Main and Pickard. And at the same time, we would also convert those lights to LED. To obtain efficiencies, we're also recommending that J Rank do some LED retrofitting and adjust the span wires at Brown and Broadway as part of that same contract. And both projects can be completed by J Rank for a cost of $25,185. And a budget amendment from the Major Street Fund balance is recommended to fund that project, and there's adequate funds to do that. The next item is we're recommending the introduction of changes to the solid waste ordinance, which is Chapter 50 of the Code of Ordinances. And these changes are based on a work session discussion we had way back last February. And in summary, the changes would allow for duplexes and triplexes to utilize a new method of trash disposal that would be city trash carts. And it would take place through our contract with Republic under certain circumstances. The contract amendments the ordinance amendments would also allow 2-family units that are in larger complex where there's 5 or more buildings to choose their preferred method of trash disposal. And while staff was working with the city attorney to implement those changes, we felt it was a good time to clean up some of that solid waste ordinance language to make it easier to read and clearer to follow. So we recommended those ordinance amendments, And all you're doing tonight is setting a public hearing for July 27th to obtain public input into those proposed changes. In addition to doing our normal public hearing notices that we will do, we will be sure to reach out to the 3 property owners who had brought these issues forward to us to make sure they're aware of the public hearing as well. The next item on the consent calendar is, you'll recall, we were awarded a grant for improvements to our detention pond at Industrial Park South earlier this year. And as we continue to walk through that very lengthy process with EDA, one of the documents that they're requiring is a certification that the city has not and will not use eminent domain in this area in order to benefit property or to benefit private businesses. We have not done that and do not intend to do so for this project. So therefore, we recommend you authorize the mayor to sign the appropriate document on behalf of the city to provide that assurance. The next item on the consent calendar is one of the executive orders that was issued earlier this year provided property owners in certain circumstances additional time to file property tax appeals for this year, and allow those property tax appeals to be heard at the July Board of Review meeting. We do not anticipate too many of those, but to be safe, our city assessor has recommended that we utilize the option available to us to change the date of the Board of Review from the Tuesday of that week to Thursday of that week, to ensure that our city assessor has adequate time and the Board of Review members have adequate time to hear appeals that may come in that day. So the July Board of Review date would be Thursday, July 23rd. And we have confirmed that all of our Board of Review members are available that day. So we recommend you approve the resolution to officially change the date. Annually, our retirement system that many of our city employees are a part of holds an annual meeting, and someone from the city Human Resources or Finance Department attends that meeting on behalf of the city. And as with most annual meetings of organizations such as this, there's always a business portion of the meeting, and someone from the city has to be designated by the city commission as the city representative to do any voting on that annual business for the retirement system. This meeting will be held virtually, and we're recommending that you approve Shar Rapoon from our city's Human Resource Department as the employer delegate for that voting, and Suzanne Gandy would be the alternate. And then the last item on the consent calendar is approval of payrolls and warrants.
Commissioner Gillis.
I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Commissioner Alsager.
Okay, I figured it out. I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? All right, seeing no hands up. Oh, I do see Commissioner Tolis.
One question, please, Mayor. Manager Ridley, I see on this bid for Rank Electric, it's a sole source bid. Have they done work for the city before?
Yes, Commissioner, they have done a lot of work, particularly on our street lights for us, and we've always been very pleased with their work.
Okay, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Commissioner Gillis.
Yes. Can you tell me, are taxpayers still allowed to sign up for an appointment with the Board of Review, or has that deadline passed?
There are certain taxpayers who are eligible to do that. Marianne, do you know the eligibility requirements off the top of your head?
Typically, the July Board of Review is just for specific cases, but because of the executive order saying that anybody who didn't have the opportunity to go to March Board of Review can now go to July Board of Review for any reason, any taxpayer can make an appointment. we encourage them first to call the city assessor. Maybe they can just talk it through rather than having an appointment with board of review. But they're certainly eligible, anyone to file for board of review in July this year.
Thank you, Marianne.
Seeing no other hands up, we'll go to a roll call vote to approve the consent calendar.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Gillis,
Yes.
Altiger,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right. Next on our agenda is item number 7, which is to consider amendment to the frequency of evaluation for the tree at 420 South Kinney Street. Manager Ridley, would you like to give us a little bit of overview before we get into discussion?
Yes, most of you were commissioners last August when this issue first came to you. And it was based on a concern about the safety of the tree at 420 South Kinney. And originally staff had recommended to the property owners that the tree be removed due to the potential obstruction it was causing in the sidewalk. And the property owners appealed that to the city commission. And upon the appeal, the city commission opted to allow the tree to stay in place and requested that the property owners provide the annual evaluation about the health of the tree, as you heard during public comment from the property owners. And as you saw in the communication from the property owners and heard from them, they're asking this evening that instead of doing that as an annual evaluation, that evaluation be done every 5 years or when there's significant damage to the tree. And as Karen indicated, the arborist who had done the evaluation of the tree a year ago no longer has the arborist license, and there is no one readily available in Mount Pleasant to do that. The city also used to use Mr. Breedlove as an arborist and has great respect for his recommendations. And so based on the health of the tree, he has now suggested that every 5 years would probably be an adequate evaluation time period. And we are willing to support that recommendation as long as it has the provision that the evaluation could occur sooner if there was major damage to the tree, as the property owner indicated. So you're being asked tonight to consider amending the time frame. And if approved, the next evaluation would be in 2024 unless damage occurs to the tree prior to that. Prior to the meeting, I was asked by one of the commissioners if this requirement goes with the property or if it just applies to the current owner. And I've spoken via email with the current owner, and they agree that the requirement should go with the property and have agreed that filing an affidavit with the Register of Deeds to properly record that would be okay with them. So assuming you approve the amendment tonight, we would work with the city attorney and the property owner to have the appropriate affidavit recorded to make sure there's record of that, to make sure that evaluation occurs every 5 years. So we recommend that you accept the property owner's request to change the frequency of that evaluation.
All right, Commissioner Tolis.
I move to make a motion to revise the August 2019 action related to the tree at 420 South Kinney Street, such that the evaluation on the health of the tree would occur every 5 years or when the tree experiences storm damage, or whichever occurs first.
Commissioner Ronan.
I'd be happy to second that, but I had a question as well after we do that, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, George, I'll recognize you for your question.
I wasn't here last year, so again, I apologize for my ignorance again. But I'm assuming that there's no liability assumed by the city approving this. I mean, we're not assuming liability for the tree. We're not assuming liability if it's, I mean, gravity's a thing, right? I mean, I assume that because we say we'll go 5 years or something happens in 2 years, nobody can come back to us and say, hey, you approved this, I'm suing you for, anyway, I just.
You are correct. It's the tree is on private property, so the property owner is technically responsible for the tree. Now, I can't tell you, no one would try to sue us if something were to happen because of the society that we live in. The city may be named in a suit, but we believe that we would not have any liability, that the liability, if any damage was done, would be more so with the property owners.
Thank you very much. That's all I was wondering about. Thank you.
Commissioner Elsager?
I support the motion and the resolution.
Seeing no other hands up, we can go to a roll call vote on the motion. And if you want to repeat the motion, Jeremy, that'd be, I think.
And that was what was in the packet. So it was to move to revise the August 2019 action related to the tree at 420 South Kinney Street, such that the evaluation on the health of the tree would occur every 5 years or when the tree experiences storm damage, whichever occurs first. Ready for the roll call?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Lalonde,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Toles,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Okay, next on our agenda is item number 12, which is to consider the postponed resolution setting fees for Christmas tree pickup. And since this happened a long time ago, Manager Ridley, would you like to give us an overview?
Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Christmas in July, especially after this beautiful weather that we've had. In November of last year, the City Commission postponed action on a recommended new fee that would be charged to property owners who want to use our Christmas tree pickup program to have the trees picked up at the curb and then chipped by the city. And this fee was recommended in accordance with our fee policy guidelines that indicate that any service that is used by property owners that have a choice in using the service should probably have a fee associated with it. And for simplicity purposes at that time, it was recommended that the fee be set at to be equal to 2 trash tags, so that a property owner could just tie 2 trash tags to one of the limbs of the tree to signify to have the tree picked up and to be chipped. And that fee was set based on our expected 2019 costs for that tree pickup. At the time it was discussed in November, the commission asked for additional information on what municipalities around us do for Christmas tree pickup, and also an estimate of the number of individuals that take advantage of this service. So in your packet, we provided a summary from about, 12 to 15 different entities near us about a phone survey we did of them to identify how they handle Christmas tree pickup. And you can see from reading through that there are a number of different ways that municipalities handle it and or pay for it. And this year in January, when the trees were picked up, we asked the staff to keep a fairly accurate count of how many trees were picked up. And in January, we picked up at the curbside 313 Christmas trees, which we believe is a fairly typical number for nowadays throughout our city. So based on the information that we've given you, we're asking you now to take action on the postponed fee to determine if you want to implement this new fee, which would be effective January 1st of 2021. And we think it's appropriate to do this Christmas in July discussion so that residents know if there is going to be a fee associated with that before they potentially go out and buy Christmas trees in the Christmas season that will be here before we know it. I should note that one of the other things we learned in our research is the material recovery facility allows residents of Isabella County to drop off trees at the MRF during the holiday season. And the current fee for doing that is $3 for any tree that is under 7 feet high. So the fee recommended last November would be the equivalent of 2 trash tags, which currently has a cost of $6.30 that we're asking you to consider this evening.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Recognize Commissioner Elsager.
I move to approve the Christmas tree disposal fee resolution as presented.
Okay. Commissioner Gillis.
Second.
All right. And discussion. Commissioner Gillis, is your hand still up? No? Okay. Commissioner Tolis, I see your hand is up, but I think that's from probably our last discussion.
It was from the last one, Mayor, but I have one question.
Sure.
So the tags, Nancy, are $6.30 each?
No, they're $3.15 each.
Okay. Thank you.
Currently. Yeah.
Commissioner Gillis.
Yes, I appreciate staff getting us some information on how some surrounding communities deal with their waste and large item pickup. Very interested if any of those scenarios may work here in Mount Pleasant. I've had community members and even former city commissioners that were familiar with some other communities which allowed any large item pickup to be taken care of free. Some of the municipalities did a $200 fee for everything from recyclables to trash to large item pickup. So I think this would be a wonderful way to give back to the community to see if there's some alternatives to reduce the cost of trash, recyclables, and the large item pickups that some people don't find a place to take them. They don't take them to Salvation Army or nonprofits, and they end up dumping them off on dead end roads or in our ditches. And we've all seen some of that litter through the community and Union Township and elsewhere. So I would really like to see if there's something that we might be able to finagle for our community members where it could be a reasonable fee to have all those things included: recyclables, trash tags, and large item pickup. $3.15 for one garbage bag or garbage can full of waste is quite expensive. You go buy 10 tags, it's $35. Well, $31, I should say. But I appreciate the information. I'm going to be supporting this resolution as well. And I hope we could find some alternatives to help community members in that cost. Thank you.
I also am going to be supporting the resolution indicated in the memo from staff. The city approximately spends about $4,000 every year on Christmas tree pickup and turning those trees into shipping them into mulch, which we do give away for free for those who wanted to pick up. And so this fee will really cover half of that $4,000. And so I think it's a fair deal that we're giving our taxpayers, that we're covering at least half the cost. And if you are able to, put it in the back of your truck or have someone haul it for you, the MRF will do it for basically half the cost. So I think it's a fair proposal, and I will be supporting that tonight. Seeing no other hands up, we will move to a roll call vote on the resolution.
Right. Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. Next on our agenda is item number 13, which is to consider a resolution for amended loan repayment for terms for Brownfield. And Manager Ridley, would you like to start us off?
Yes, this is a different kind of Christmas in July for you this evening. In 2013, the city was awarded a low-interest loan through the state, and those funds were used to assist with the demolition of some of the buildings at the Mount Pleasant Center. And the city ended up using approximately $825,000 of the available $1 million that was made available to us. And that assisted with the demolition, and we started paying back that loan in 2018 as required by the loan agreement. Due to the pandemic, the state contacted Marianne as our finance director a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now, and offered to renegotiate the payment terms of the outstanding loan. And so through discussions that she had with the State Department that administers this loan through Eagle, they've agreed to defer the city's payments for both this year and next year, so that the approximately $80,000 that we were scheduled to pay both this year and next year would not have to be paid. They would be spread out. And they've also agreed to reduce the interest rate from 1.5% to 0.25%. So these changes will save the city almost $42,000 in interest costs over the remaining term of the loan. And it will also give us flexibility as we look at both this year's and next year's budget to try to figure out how to balance those, since we won't have to make those $80,000 payments either of those 2 years. So we think this is a great opportunity to take advantage of that loan refinancing. And so we're recommending that you authorize the city manager to sign the amended agreements with the state reflecting these changes.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Commissioner Alsager?
I move to authorize the city manager to sign the amendment to the Brownfield loan agreement with the revised loan terms as presented.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gillis?
Second.
All right. Discussion, Commissioner Tolis?
I have a couple questions, please. Mary Ann, can you tell me right off ballpark what the balance is on that loan?
Yes, I can. We owe $674,477.18.
Thank
How's
you.
that for ballpark?
Also, another question. This reduction from 1.5% to 0.25%, is that just for the year 2020 and 21?
No, it's for the term of the loan.
It's for the term of the loan?
Mhm.
Okay. That's the only two questions I had. I think it's a no-brainer. We're going to save 42,000, so plus we're getting a reduction. I will be supporting it.
Commissioner Gillis?
Yes, I have a question. I guess I didn't realize about the loan that could be converted to a grant if we had a developer that was interested in the property. So my question is that a developer for any part of the property, a 5, a 10 acre, the whole property? I just want to make sure I understand that if we get a developer that may be putting up something like I don't know, the jail was interested in, the sheriff's office was interested at one time at looking at some of that property and was shot down. But in the interest of, if we had a developer and we got that ball rolling, that this loan of 680,000, did you say, Marianne?
74.
Could be forgiven for a grant. That's a big piece of pocket change we could help with, paying off what we've borrowed for that excavation of the buildings there.
That term was only for the first 5 years. Within the 5 years of the grant, we had to have a development. So that 5 years is expired.
Great. Okay. And that was expired, what, last year? When, that would have been,
2018.
thank you for that clarification, Marianne.
Commissioner Tolis, is your hand still up?
I'm sorry, Mayor. I forgot to take it down.
That's okay. All right. Seeing no other discussion, as Commissioner Tolis said, I think it's a no-brainer. So we'll go to a roll call vote.
All right. Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. All right, next on our agenda is item number 15, which we added today at the beginning of our meeting. And is the resolution. I guess I would hand it over to, I know, I will hand it over to Vice Mayor Perschbacher to talk about the resolution she introduced, so.
Okay, let me know if you can't hear me, because it seems to be I'm having trouble with my microphone. Recently at 12:01 a.m. this morning, the Executive Order 2020-147 from the Governor's Office of the State of Michigan was activated. This states that it is mandatory to wear face coverings while you are in a public place or in an outdoor place in a large group where social distancing is hard to maintain. Now, I know that this has already gone down. This is, it's an executive order and we have to follow us. The reason why I suggest this resolution is because this helps everyone understand that the city is going to do what they can to help our residents maintain health, lower our numbers. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we keep going up in Isabella County. We want to lower our numbers of COVID positive cases. And I think that this just gives everyone the understanding that we are for this. We want everyone to be healthy, and wearing your mask is important. It just is.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Perschbacher. And then Major, really, did we have any comments from staff or things that we should consider before we get into our discussion?
I don't think so. I guess I would just reemphasize that this resolution just encourages individuals to adhere to that. And it does it both at the individual level. We're encouraging individuals to be good neighbors and wear masks to protect their neighbors, to protect their fellow community members, the business owners, the frontline workers, and the visitors to our community. And we're also encouraging businesses to the extent they can to help implement it, again, to protect all of those individuals. So it's really an encouragement for all of us to do what we can to help prevent this spread of the virus. So it's all an encouragement for our individuals to follow this executive order.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Commissioner Elsager.
I will be supporting this, and I did want to mention, I like the way that it is worded, that the first step is to educate and encourage, and that the first step is not to ticket or make it a problem. So I do appreciate the way it is written.
We do need a motion to support the resolution. So Mary, I would ask, are you willing to support a motion or make a motion?
Yes, I will do that. I would like to support the motion as explained by Commissioner Perschbacher.
Okay, and Commissioner Ronan?
I'll second that.
All right, and now we can really go formally into our discussion. I will also be supporting the resolution tonight. I think the governor has been doing her best to lead the state towards bringing a flattened curve of infection, and the recent round of infections over the last few weeks has also brought a lot of concern on people's minds, and also it's been the root cause for some businesses not being able to open their doors. And obviously, as we head towards the school season, those concerns are heightened with our young children, and even here, our students at CMU and other universities. It's how do we handle it? How do we bring our numbers down? And if everyone does their part, the hope is that we can bring infections down and beat COVID-19 the best we can. So I'll be supporting the resolution, and I know the city is doing its best to be a resource for our residents and our businesses, and that's really that's important because we're all going through a tough time. So, Commissioner Tolis.
Thank you. I will not be supporting this tonight for the reasons, number one, I think it's unconstitutional. The second point is that all the businesses in town now did require, before most of them did, Menards, TSC, the drugstores, the grocery stores required you to have a mask or they won't allow you to enter. So now basically the state of Michigan has put it on, not the law enforcement, because most law enforcement is not going to expend the time to sit there and try to enforce this. It's ridiculous. They're going to require the business owners to do it now. As she said, if you don't do it, I'll jerk your license. I mean, I don't see what this is accomplishing, really, except a problem.
Commissioner Elsager.
I'm in partial agreement with Commissioner Tolis, but there's been some establishments that I go into where mask wearing has not been the practice. And I do think whether it's a gas station where travelers are coming in or just with our own city residents, the more we can do to support the governor and to support mask wearing, I think it's very important. So I will be supporting this resolution.
Commissioner Gillis.
I will also be supporting this resolution. I have said probably for the last couple months that the mask you wear today will be the life you save tomorrow. I do believe this has become a problem and a divisive issue, which it should not. It is a health concern, and we are in a global pandemic. I have been to several establishments, eateries, pizza joints, Walmart, who have not been effective in telling their customers to wear a mask. I would say 1 out of 4 people wear a mask. Before this order came down, there would be 3 people without a mask and 1 person with a mask. I myself and my daughter have experienced people where we both were into a store, Kohl's, It says right on the door, this was Friday, we were in need of bathing suits. It was not an essential shopping trip, but almost an essential shopping trip because an old bathing suit of 5 years, but I digress. We were in there with masks. We were in and out trying to make it as quick as possible as we do all our shopping trips. I had a woman with 2 children come right up next to me and stand right next to me with her 2 children unmasked. Both obviously we are concerned about this. I have 2 individuals in my household that I have to be concerned with, an immunocompromised and a respiratory asthma young man. And I also take care of my 81-year-old father. So I would expect if someone else is standing in a store to be at least sensitive and considerate enough, if I'm standing there with a mask, to not stand by me. She didn't even give me 6 feet. We did pick up the things we were looking at and moved over. And I had said something about some people are adhering to the 6-foot social distancing. And she, and then in turn did the response that everyone is getting to know. And you know what the response is. So I'm not going to say it about a medical condition. But this helps no one. This helps no one get back to athletics, football games, and school. We have to be a role model for our children. Our children will have to wear masks in school from 3rd grade up. The only way we get them back inside the building to teach them is if our parents and our adult community members show them what that looks like. And we have to do our part. This is only going to hopefully be a temporary thing until we get a hold of this COVID and a vaccine out there. But community members, we need to come together to protect each other. You just have to do this small thing, and you only have to do it when you're in the public arena. You don't have to wear it. If you decide you want 2 or 3 friends over at your household, we are not enforcing you to do any kind of restrictions in your own home. But in a public sphere where I have to put myself, because I have to grocery shop or I have to get things, I should not be at risk, and I should be not at risk bringing home something to my family because the community members will not do a simple thing as getting a mask. Please put your mask on. A mask you wear today will be the life you save tomorrow. I know we can get through this together. Just come together as a community and take care of each other. Please offer your assistance to someone that may not understand the issue. And I want to once again, which I said the last city commission meeting, asymptomatic patients are real. There are people that are COVID positive that have no symptoms. They could be standing next to you and what do they say? I'm not sick. Well, you don't know that. None of us know if we're sick or not because it's asymptomatic. In fact, if you had a test and you are negative today, it doesn't mean 3 days from now you will be positive. So because of the uncertainty in this virus, we have to do our small part of wearing a mask. Please follow the governor's orders so we don't have to end up taking this issue into a misdemeanor. Just please be conscious. And if you can't go into the store for whatever reason and wear a mask, please find someone who can do that for you. I've been doing that for my father since March. Please find someone that can do your shopping for you so you don't infect others. Appreciate your time listening to me. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other hands up, we'll go to a roll call vote on the resolution.
Commissioner Elsiger,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Toles,
No.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Right. All right, next on our agenda is announcements on city-related issues and new business. Commissioner Ronan.
Yeah, in light of what Commissioner Gillis and some other people were talking about, I wonder if the commission ever plays a role in, or maybe some of the people in City Hall, like Michelle or somebody, could play a role in maybe working with outreach to foster a prize for maybe someone developing posters to support mask wearing. You know, sometimes they have these grammar school kids or high school kids who make posters, and outreach has a competition for it. I'm not sure how we go about doing that, but I wonder if that would get some of the community involved in a positive way, where they're sort of, and I'm sure I could get a couple businesses downtown to devote a couple $100, or, devote some prize money. Or is that appropriate? Or, I mean, is this the vehicle for discussing something like that, or not? I don't. Probably not.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think the announcements on, new business, it seems to be pretty open, but I guess that would be something that George, I would recommend that maybe we follow up maybe during the week, and we can discuss maybe something like that. I don't know if yeah.
Sure. Because it would be a way of getting some of the children and adolescents in our community involved. And I just okay. Thank you. That's it.
Commissioner Elsager.
Well, I don't usually comment during this portion of the meeting, but I was reading today in the paper, and this involves our good neighbors at Central Michigan University. And it's related to the COVID-19. And knowing that they have some fall athletes on campus already, and I'm sure they've done COVID testing, to implore them to share their results so that students that are considering whether or not to come back in the fall know what's currently happening in town and can, more firmly make their decision of whether they want to move back this fall. And I think part of that is going to be the transparency from the university right now.
Commissioner Tolis.
Thank you, Mayor. Jason, I would like to commend you and the workers that did the 2 flower planter replacements on Broadway Street. I looked at the work. The concrete flat work was very professional. The block laying and everything else. Do you have any idea what the cost of that was compared to the bids that we had let out?
I think it was less expensive than what we expected a contractor contracted cost would be for us. I don't remember the numbers exactly, so I'd have to get that for you. But it looked like it came in pretty efficient, and so there's a good potential for doing some more of those.
And I noticed those are larger than the rest of them that are downtown. So if the cost is less, I would hopefully the DPW will do the rest of the work and save the city some money. But you have to commend your guys. That work is excellent.
I will do that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Gillis.
Yes. I want to encourage everybody to fill out the census that hasn't yet. I know we're getting really good response rate on the census. I worked for the census twice on the 10-year census, and I'm wondering if we have any way that we can set, or if we already do, if there's any way that we can set up both for the primary, and I don't know if the November election would be too late, and also at the farmers market, if we could set up booths with laptops that may be able to encourage people to fill out their census while they're coming to visit or visit the farmer's market or voting. I don't know if that's illegal, if that could be done. I know people have a problem because they're not only not tech savvy, but they don't have access to the internet. Some people don't even have access to a computer. We've got the library back open so that if anybody is in that circumstance, that we have a computer lab in the library that has several computers that you can use with internet access. And the Commission on Aging also is helping some of our senior folks to be able to fill out the census. Is there any other types of outreach that we can do where we can catch people and literally set them down at a computer and help them walk them through that?
Commissioner Gillis, if I could comment on that, at your next meeting, Jeremy Howard plans to give an update on our outreach plans for the census based on what we currently know from the Census Bureau and what's upcoming. So we will have a fairly good update for you at that next meeting to let you know what the plans are.
Okay. Could you tell me, do we have anything at the farmer's market?
Jeremy?
Do we have anything set up at the farmer's market, a table or any kind of thing going on at the farmer's market on Thursdays?
Yeah, I've worked with Carol Moody, who's in charge of the farmers market,
Yes.
and actually gave her, we had ordered back way before COVID, a bunch of fidget spinners and some other stuff. So she does have those that can be handed out. And I know they're trying to still get all the rules in place. So they were talking about maybe being able to put up a sign for us as well, that, just a reminder to take the census and, as you're standing in line or waiting to get to the booth. So she's aware of some of those things, and we've already kind of partnered with doing some chalk art with them. Not in the parks, but with the recreation department. So yes, there are some conversations that we're already having with the farmers market at this point.
Wonderful. Do you know the response rate?
Yeah, I think we're up to, I think it's 50, it's like just a hair under 59 for the city. Michigan's response rate is 68.2, and we're at like 59%, I think.
Wonderful. Bravo. Good job, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other announcements on city-related business, I will close this section of the agenda, and we can go into our public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. It does not appear that we have anyone here from the public in our meeting at the moment. Manager Ridley, were there any emailed comments to the commission?
I need just 1 second, Mayor, to get back to that screen, please.
Sure.
No, we have not received any comments that came in this evening.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I will now close the public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. And we do have a work session tonight over the homeowner loan / grant programs associated with the MSHDA grant. And so let's take a 5-minute recess, and we'll dive into that work session. Okay. It looks like we have all our commissioners back, and so we will start back and open up our work session to talk about the homeowner loan / grant program and the parameters on that program. We have Doug Lobsinger with us today, who's done a lot of work at the staff level to get this underway. But first of all, I guess I'd hand it over to Nancy or Doug to start off our discussion and sort of give a brief overview of what we're talking about tonight. Hey, Nancy, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mayor. As you indicated, we've received a MSHDA grant for $30,000 for this neighborhood enhancement program. And we have recommended that we put an additional $60,000 of our existing HODAG money into the program as well, so that we get more outcome for the amount of effort that goes into this program, because the MSHDA part of it has a significant amount of administrative work to it. So we thought it would be more valuable to get more outcome from the program. As we indicated in the work session materials, the MSHDA money is supposed to be used by December 31st of this year. But if we have approved projects that need individual extensions, we can get those for individual projects. But we are anxious to get information out to the public about the availability of these grants so that we can get things moving. And the document we put in your work session packet is really about primarily the eligibility requirements or the parameters associated with the program. And the column that is labeled grant funded, we really have very little flexibility in most of those parameters because MSHDA has defined those. But we did highlight 4 of the areas in yellow where we do have some flexibility, and we've recommended what we think those parameters should be. But certainly if you want to discuss any of those or want to potentially change any of those, we can do that before we start advertising the program. Once we advertise it, obviously it becomes much more difficult to change those. So there's a couple areas in that column we could talk about. And then on the city funded side, which is the $60,000, we have a lot more flexibility with. And we have recommended to the extent possible that the parameters should be the same, just because it's easier to communicate and to administer the program, the more of them that are the same. But as I indicated, you have a lot more flexibility since those are local funds that we have. So we could change some of those if you wanted to this evening. So those are the 2 primary things we really want to accomplish tonight, so we can start getting the word out and start getting applications in. But certainly Doug and Paul are willing to answer any other questions you have regarding the program as well. But at a minimum, we would like that chart finalized this evening if possible, please. So with that, Doug, are there any other overview comments you think they need to know before we get started?
No, we're waiting for approval so we can start getting some applications out, start doing some advertising.
Right. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Doug. And Doug, I think that's really important. We need to bring a lot of awareness to this these projects, especially we got to get that money spent by the end of the year. And obviously, I don't think anyone could predict that we'd be in the middle of a pandemic. And so it doesn't help, but we will be trying very hard to get the word out. I am going to just jump into the line because it looks like we got a few hands up. So Commissioner Toles.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug, I got a question on the spreadsheet there under lead-based paints, asbestos, testing required to be paid by the homeowner. Do you have to do the testing before you can qualify for one?
That's correct. That would be correct. They'd have to pay that initial expense up front. And if they did qualify, the loan would, or the grant would reimburse them for that. But they would have to pay that up front. That's one of the requirements from MSHDA.
And from what I'm understanding, this is all exterior items.
Yes, that's correct.
So if somebody has, let's say asbestos siding or something, how would that homeowner know that ahead of time?
To be official, he's going to have to get it tested. But a lot of contractors can look at that type of siding and they pretty much can recognize what that is. And if the person doesn't feel very comfortable in it, I mean, they're going to have to invest a few $100s to get some testing done at the bare minimum to be considered a candidate.
So that wouldn't basically knock them out for the grant if they found that they had asbestos or?
If they did have asbestos, they'd have to get it remediated before they would be able to qualify for the grant. Yes, that would kick them out if they had that.
Then in essence, you'd have to, if you had asbestos siding, you'd have to remove that siding before you could get a grant through this, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Or
So
at least
the grant doesn't cover any of that removal of the siding?
no, I don't believe it does, but that if it failed the asbestos test, that would open another whole folder for MSHA before that would be approved. And I haven't been given that type of information other than if it doesn't pass the inspection, it wouldn't qualify for the grant. Now, that doesn't mean that if they remediated it and took it away themselves, would they qualify? My answer would be yes, because they've taken care of the problem at that point. But they'd probably have to take care of that. That would be a question that I would have to clarify through MSHA.
Because it seems to me that you'd have this grant to cure a problem like that, to help a landowner out, get rid of their asbestos siding that they don't even know has asbestos in there, and update the outside of their home.
Yeah, if I may just quick jump in, let's let us clarify and get back to the commission on that. I don't on the asbestos part of it specifically, and see if those funds can be used to take care of asbestos. We'll have an answer for you this week.
Thank you, Chief Loria.
Mr. Toles, did you have any other questions?
No, I don't, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Elsager? Mary, you're muted.
I have two questions. One is to more fully explain the lottery. There's a acronym with it there. And then the other one is to ask, I understand the main part of it is for the West Side neighborhoods, but then with the city part of it, is that also for the West Side neighborhoods? So those are my two questions.
You want to answer those, Nancy, or?
Why don't you answer the lottery one and I'll answer the location one?
In the lottery, there will be the final adjustments will be made by the Neighborhood Resource Unit Committee.
Oh, okay.
And that's a committee made up of about 9 or 10 people throughout the city, different departments. And the reason we wanted to use a lottery and then make those minor adjustments is so that we don't leave any money on the table. You know, we get different projects that are sized differently, different dollar amounts. We want to be able to use as much of this as we can.
Okay, thank you.
And as far as the location, Mary, the grant funded projects can only be used on the west side map that's outlined in your packet. But the $60,000 of city funded can be used anywhere. So we can use it in that area or in other parts of the city. So we would take whatever's not funded by MSHA, and then we'd put the rest of that into the lottery and then do a lottery for all of the $60,000 of the city funds.
Okay, thank you.
So the west side really has two options at it.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
The next hand up, Commissioner Gillis.
Yes. So the two buckets of money, the 30,000 from the MSHA and the 60,000 from the neighborhood grant, are going to be separated. so that if someone from the west side could actually have an application and dip into both of those buckets?
Well, if they're fully funded by the MISTA grant, then they wouldn't. But let's say they had a large project that was, I'm just going to pick a number out of the air, $40,000. And the amount we could do from MISTA was $5,000. Then we could put the other $35,000 into the lottery for the city funded piece of it.
Okay. I was hoping that commissioners would get attention to the citywide portion under the city funded. And if we really want to try to put some monies into a specific area that needs the most help, I would consider that the west side, that most of, I would feel that the first year, maybe taking the whole 30,000 and the 60,000 and apply it to the west side applications might make a better impact, because that is primarily low income. And there are homeowners that are holding the fort down, but do have a large percentage of rentals. And although it helps because they're under the rental licensing code for blight, homeowners unfortunately are not under those same standards. So that might help some community neighborhood pick me up if more funds were allocated just to the west side. So that was one of my comments on the city funded part under citywide. I also have some feelings about the maximum funded with lien of $30,000 under the grant funded projects. I would have a problem that only one homeowner would get the whole $30,000. I would assume that would only happen if there was only one application and the end of the year was here and we had to get rid of it or give it back. Is that right, Ms. Ridley?
Yes, that was our thinking, Commissioner Gillis, is that as Mr. Lobsinger said, we don't want to leave money on the table. So in the worst case scenario, if we only had one eligible project and we were getting close to the end of the year, we would prefer to do that instead of leave the money on the table if we couldn't get an extension. But our goal is to award multiple grants, as the next line shows. The grant requires we can do no more than 5 with the MISTA funding, but our goal is to do as close to 5 as we can if possible, depending on the types of grant requests we get.
Okay, great. And then one last question. Does anyone know off the top of their head if the median income is the Mount Pleasant's median or Isabella County's median income, or is that the state's median income at 120%? And what is that limit, if you would know that figure?
Yes, I know that. That's based off the Isabella County's figures that we get. And it's all depending on the size of your family. Like one person, the maximum limits for 120% would be 51,000. Or if they had 6 kids, it'd be 85,000. And so on. Each one is figured out. And when they fill out an application, they also fill out this household income self-verification form, and on that it shows for each family size what their income requirements would be.
So for a family of one, a one-person household, if you are a homeowner, 120% of median income of Isabella County is 61,000?
51,360.
Oh, 51,000.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Well, that would include most of the west side. Because I'm sure as it goes up with more household, obviously it goes up in the threshold. So
that's correct.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Officer Lobsinger. I should say chief, or you're not the officer anymore, are you?
Doug's fine.
All right, Commissioner Ronan.
My questions were similar to Laurie's actually, and I just don't understand this better. My sense is that Doug, you investigated the west side because you saw this is the side that needed the most help. So and I'm just not sure what the west side is, to be honest. So I apologize for that. Is that west of Main Street, or is it? Or is
Yeah, the map that I
Yeah.
believe you can reference, it's basically west of the river from High Street to Pickard, and then Bradley Street to the edge of the river.
So I'm looking at it, but does it so it wouldn't? Oh, it would actually. So this would include the area for the best, west of Washington Street. No, it wouldn't.
No, it would not, because that would be on the east side of the river.
Got it. I apologize. Okay, I got it better now. Thank you. So my guess is, since you applied for this particular area, I mean, my guess is you're thinking that this is the area that needs it the most.
Yes, and it's a larger area than some of the communities have done in the past, but it's a very appealing one. We've got school systems in it, we've got park systems in it, and we've got trails that connect the parks that make it very appealing for applying to the MSHA program.
Great.
And we've invested different monies in this area. We did consider a couple other areas in the community, and in the end, the NRU committee decided on this neighborhood to start.
Right.
And we're actually hoping this is something that maybe we can continue. I mean, this is round 5. They've had 4 other rounds this year, and if there's a possibility, if it goes over well and we feel it's effective, that we may try to do it again.
So I hate to be such a nudge, but so instead of it being citywide, could it be the west side plus that area that's sort of west of Washington Street, are the options citywide or west side, or could there be other areas that might be similar to?
The city funded dollars, we have flexibility to set the boundary. We would just have to have some justification of why we picked that different boundary. So we could use that, but we'd have to be able to explain why that was the demarcation line for the boundaries of it.
Can I do a follow-up? Do we have average incomes for different areas of the city, or we don't? I mean,
I believe we can get that information from Mr. Kane.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this to the point where we can't get any money to anybody. So I'm hesitant to even bring it up. But it seems to me that citywide is very broad, I guess. And I'm not sure if Laurie was commenting on this, but I think it dilutes. It could have the potential to dilute, the impact. But I'm okay.
When reviewing the documents and the memos for the work session, I also, noted that, and I guess I would ask, Manager Ridley, can you give us sort of a brief overview of, where those HODAG funds come from, and just so like when we consider the citywide portion versus the west side, that maybe there's a distinction there.
Well, the HODAG funds came from funds we previously received at the city as grant funds through the federal government. And or loan funds, and as they've been turned over, we now have the ability to use them locally without any federal requirements tied to them. So they truly are just local funds that we have discretion over. The only tag that still goes with them that we're expected to do is use them to improve neighborhoods. And you certainly have some discretion in how you define that, but certainly they have to be used to improve neighborhoods. And the reason that we suggested that those be more citywide instead of on the west side is because part of what Assistant Chief Labsinger said is we do have the ability to apply for additional MSHA grant funds in the future. And because we had such success getting this grant fund based on the west side, we're thinking if we have some success there, we're likely to get reawarded in future years potentially. So that's why we had suggested that the HODAG funds be more used citywide. But certainly we can adjust that. And if you want to spend all 90,000 on the west side first and see how that goes. We could do that. We could do a first round of applications to see what kind of interest we get for it. Or we could do $60,000 on the west side and $30,000 citywide. So there's a lot of flexibility there based on what the majority of you want us to do with that.
Okay. Thank you for that. I guess a follow-up question is, with those HODAG dollars, do those have an expiration?
They do not.
And is there, what is the, what is that the maximum amount of money we have left, is that $60,000?
No, we have in excess of $300,000 in the HODAG fund. Marianne, do you know the number off the top of your head?
No, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'd have to look that up.
I'm pretty certain it's in excess of $300,000 that we can use in neighborhoods.
Yes, it's way more than the 60,000. You could use the 60,000 many times over.
I believe you told me 315 earlier, Marianne, when I asked you.
I guess the only thing I would remind the commission of is at one point we did talk, while we've used some of the HODAG funds for the owner occupied incentive program. And as you recall, we talked a couple weeks ago about trying to reinvent that program. And so we think we should use some of those HODAG funds or reserve some of them for that owner occupied incentive program once we're ready to implement that. So I would be hesitant to put all of it into this basket, but certainly there's more flexibility than just the 60,000 if you desire.
Sure. And HODAG funds have been used for, sort of like smaller dollar grants for specific neighborhoods before in the city, correct?
We haven't done that for quite some time, Mayor. The last allocation we made of HODAG funds was for the owner occupied incentive program.
Okay. And then I guess I had just a quick question on the city funded side, the $9,999 limit, and that was the maximum funding with a lien. And what was the reasoning behind that number, I suppose?
Again, just to make the dollars go as far as they would go, knowing we only had $60,000 to spend. If they were all high dollar ones, we figured that was only 6 properties that would be impacted. So we were trying to spread it as best we could.
Okay. Commissioner Tolis, I see your hand is back up.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to agree with Commissioner Gillis. I think the west side needs attention, and I think we can use most of these funds maybe in a first round to do that. So this 9,900, Nancy, you're basing that out of the 60,000 and not the 30?
Correct, because on the 30,000, that's correct. The $9,999 goes with the $60,000 of city funds.
So could we possibly take 30 and 30 and then use the other 30 citywide and use 60 on the west side possibly?
Yep, that's certainly doable.
Commissioner Alsager?
I think that what Commissioner Tolis asked is a good question, and whether we should and could allocate, but I do think the way the city has prepared it, it does favor applicants from the west side for the city money as well. So I don't know that we need to make a change, but I do agree that we should support improvements on the west side.
Yeah, I would add it. It seems to me that the way this is set up, that the $30,000 from MISTA obviously is for that west side area that's in the map only, but it doesn't preclude other applicants from the west side applying for some of the city funded dollars. And so I came into this meeting sort of thinking that the parameters that as they're set up by staff are fine as they are, because no one is really losing out. And, if this program is successful, then, and we feel, hey, we need to allocate specifically more dollars to the west side, I think, that's an adjustment we can make down the road. But that was just my thinking coming into it. Commissioner Gillis?
Yes. I would be more comfortable with taking some of the city funds and putting it on the west side grant funded projects to help that with a bigger amount of money. But I can see where, as long as that we can get to both of them, if people, the city funded projects aren't specific to either not include the west side or include it. It's literally citywide. So I would assume that they could take out of different buckets if someone had a project that was bigger than what they were allocated on the Mishta side. They could have a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Also based on the neighborhood and the greatest impact on the neighborhood.
Sure. Yeah, because there are neighborhoods that I think on the west side, and certainly in old Mount Pleasant, north of downtown, and even south, that are in need of this kind of boost. There are other neighborhoods that are pleasantly decorated from inside, from outside and their yards, that I don't think allowing them to, or I don't think that's the major impact. When I'm looking at neighborhood enhancement grants, I think it is the most lowest income, the bigger bang for your buck. And that bigger bang for your buck is on the west side. There's no doubt about that. And I really appreciate all the time that was put into staff by this, because it's been a long time coming that we had something that we could offer homeowners to ease the pain on some of the improvements, because of the cost of improvement almost makes it impossible to do, even though you would, you'd want to dive into that. I do have a problem with the maximum funding with the no lien and the with lien differentiation. I don't feel comfortable if someone has no lien on their house, that they would be allowed, or they would be eligible for a lesser amount because they have no mortgage. So that I would rather have both of those numbers.
Commissioner Gillis, that's not what that means.
Okay.
Yeah, what that means is if I get a grant for $7,000, it's truly a grant to me. There's no lien put on my house when I get that grant. But if I get something over $7,499, then MSHDA requires that the city attach a lien to that house, so that if it's sold within a certain period of time, they're required to, Doug, is it pay it back or pay a portion?
Pay it back within 5 years, and it's prorated in that 5 years for how much they'd have to pay that back.
So it has nothing to do with if you have a mortgage. It's just depending on the grant amount you get, we may have to put a lien on your house so that if you sell it within a certain period of time, we can get some of that money back. And that's a MSHDA requirement.
That's
wonderful.
Correct.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I'm so glad that little caveat's in that, because you know all the reasons why. So.
One of our goals was that with this being something that we may be able to do a second or a third time, was to have this more manageable for us to get into this program, see how it works, learn by doing it once, and then continue to apply for it after that again and again. Who knows how many times.
Great. Commissioner Toles?
Yes, I'd like to see this 60-30 split done on the first round. And then if we proceed with a second round, we can just reverse it the other way and go 60,000 citywide and then 30,000 to the west side. And we can see what our results are on the first round. but I think that would balance it out and make it fair, so.
Are the rest of you comfortable with that change? You want us to structure it that way? I'm seeing lots of head nods.
So just to clarify, that means $60,000 committed to the west side only, and then $30,000 citywide.
Correct, if everybody's in agreement with that. And then we could reverse it for the second round, go 60-30 the other way.
Okay.
And of course, the monies for whatever first applications would be taken from the 30,000 that has to be used. And if that other 30,000 isn't used, and it's someone's application is in the citywide, I'm sure we could, we'll just hold it over, right? We just hold it over until the next year.
That, or if we don't have enough applications for the west side, we could, but we have a lot that are citywide, we could bring it back to you and ask you to reallocate the funds to the citywide side of it. So we could start trying to do it that way, the way Commissioner Tolis outlined it. And if the grant applications aren't there, then we can come back to you and ask for a revision to it.
Wonderful. Thank you. I am very much in agreement with that. Thank you.
So just to clarify for myself, so if we don't, the $30,000, no matter what we do tonight, is committed to the west side. But if we find that, you know, we just can't get above that $30,000, or if we can't get to the extra 30, we have the flexibility to make that change before the end of the year or whatever that deadline.
Absolutely, we're gonna have to expend the $30,000. So if we don't have enough applicants on the west side, then we'll switch over to citywide to make sure that we use that $30,000 and capture it.
We can't use it only on the west side. That MSHDA grant, and correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but that can only be used on the west side. So we have to use those funds first. So any applicants that come in from the west side, that's the bucket of money we're going to from the MSHDA.
Yep.
That's correct.
That's gone, then we can go to the next 30,000 that the city allocated on the west side. And then of course, citywide from any place else from the city, because if a west sider puts in an application and they get accepted, we're going to take them out of that 30,000 MSHDA funds before any other bucket, because that's on a timeline.
Yep.
Right.
Correct. As long as they're going to have to agree to part of this, such as like if they don't want to have a lien put on, then they get less than $7,500 from MSHDA funds. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't kick in some funds from the 60,000 towards that. And it also doesn't mean that they can't put in some of their funds if they choose to. Those are options there.
So yeah, as we look at the applications we receive, what we would do is our first priority would be to use up the MSHDA funds on the west side. Then our second priority would be to look at what other applications do we have on the west side and try to spend $30,000 of city funds there. And then $30,000 on the rest of the city. And if those last two pieces don't work out, depending on the applications we get, we can bring it back to you and ask you to move those around. But that will be our goal, to do 60,000 on the west side, 30,000 citywide.
Okay. Kristen, I just noticed that you kind of popped back in, and I was wondering if.
I was eating a chicken nugget.
Oh,
Be polite.
all right, but you know where the discussion is, and
yeah.
Okay, all right. All right. I see Commissioner Elshager's hand up.
I would support the idea that Commissioner Tolis has proposed. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Ronan?
Yeah, I'd go along with that as well. I think that I think it maximizes the impact we're going to have there. So.
And Commissioner Tolis?
I have another question, Mayor, please, for Doug. This MSHDA grant or loan, does it ever phase out? on this lien that you're putting on the property, I can see Mishta, giving you the money and you have to keep it for a 5-year period.
Yeah, if you sell it within that 5-year period, you're going to have to pay either the entire portion or a portion of it back based on where
Okay.
you're at in that 5-year period.
I understand that, but if you don't sell it and you go beyond 5 years, let's say 10 years.
Yep, then your lien obligation has been erased.
Okay.
And from that point on, unless you keep it for 6.5 years and sell it, you don't have to pay it back.
Thank you
It's
very
a,
much.
it's a grant.
That was my question, whether it was a grant, then you got over a period, the time
Yes.
period, and then it extinguishes
Yes.
itself. So really the 5-year period is stopping somebody from getting it, doing the renovation, and then turning around and selling it and profiting off of it. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other items that the commission wants to discuss, or changes to the parameters that people felt we should talk about? Not seeing any hands up, so
Can I just clarify something, Mayor, just to make sure I've got it right? Even
Yeah.
though we're putting $60,000 into the west side, the part that's coming from the city, are you comfortable that the maximum funding of that city portion would be at the $9,999 to try to spread it around as much as we can? So for instance, you don't want, on the Mishta one, if push comes to shove, we could do 30,000 if we just got one application. Do you really want to do a second 30,000 on the west side if we only got 2 applications?
no.
Okay, so the 10,000 applies to the city funds, even though it's on the west side. Okay. I thought that, I just wanted to make sure we had it right. So, okay.
Yep, that's a very important thing to note. So thank you, Nancy. I just had one last question that's sort of not related to the parameters, but what does the application process look like, and what is the plan to really make people aware of this program going from here on out?
Doug, do you want to address that?
Sure,
I've got a
sure.
draft of the application, Mayor, and it's only 1 page long. So
Okay.
that's
Yep.
encouraging, but I'll let Doug go into
Yep.
more details with it.
I've been working with Darcy to help get some advertising lined up for it. And we're going to advertise on the social media, our website, of course. And we're going to see if we can get an article in the paper, kind of describing it a little bit. Our goal is to see how many applicants we could get in a month, because we want to get going. We're burning daylight here. It's going to be snowing here soon. So, but I have been assured that the individual projects, if we need to get an extension, we've got a really good chance of getting the extension, and that would be till September of 21.
Okay.
So but we can't file any of those extensions until we get the projects approved.
Right.
And we'll also put the information in our city newsletters, but we do not
Sure.
have a print newsletter that's scheduled to go out in the next month. So it would just be the electronic newsletters that it goes into. So as Doug mentioned, we'll try to get a hold of both newspapers to see if we can get an article run to help get the word out that way as well.
Okay.
And Doug, is the application truly only a 1-pager application?
It's got a little bit on the second page. I don't know if you can see this. We added a kind of a nice picture. Tried to get a nice picture on that Darcy was adding, and this is a kind of just a general picture to get people's attention. We're trying not to make it too busy, because we got to be able to fill it out.
Right. Right. Okay. And then once you apply, the turnaround for, verification of employment or of your income and things like that, that's pretty quick turnaround.
It is on our end. I'm not sure what that turnaround is on the Mishta's end.
Okay.
I'd like to say yes on that, but we'll see. We've jumped through a lot of hoops, and it's going to be a lot of paper shuffling, getting estimates and bids and maintaining and qualifying everything and getting it approved. But if it works well and we can do it again, we just keep adding 30,000 every couple times we get a grant. We do what we can.
But Mishta also wants this program to be successful, so we expect that they will help us out through it.
Yes, yes. And a couple of other communities that have participated in this, that are continuing to participate in it, has been very encouraging to me. They have expressed that this has been a really good thing for their community, has lessened the code enforcement in that area where they're in there fixing some of these communities up. So,
Yeah. That's great. That is great news. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you to Nancy and Doug and Paul and to the commission. Anyone have any last comments or questions before we sign off?
I am just about able to answer the question on the asbestos for Commissioner Tolis.
Let's hold off on that until we,
Okay.
yeah, let's make sure
Okay.
we've got it right. We'll answer it later this week for you.
Very good.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And I think we can stand adjourned at 8:51 tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Used to let me-